All right, so this is something that I normally do on a tablet to show y'all. But I wanted to show you how the worksheets work. They all have a little red dot on them where you need to start. Okay, well this one should have a red dot here, and here, and here, okay? And if you notice at the top of the worksheet it says follow the rainbow. So you're going to take this red dot, you're going to follow it up and around until you hit the orange. So red, then orange, over, yellow, over to green, around, up and over, back all the way around to blue, out for purple, black, brown. Then travel back over to red and follow the sequence. Then it's orange, then yellow. And then when you get these pieces so close together that it's hard to fit other of the same design in, you can just keep going around till you close the circle enough that you feel comfortable with it. And then I just put little arches in those areas to kind of fill them in. Travel it back along the circle, circle out, bring it back around. Now if you notice, oops, there are some shapes at the top of these worksheets. So this one shows you that it's a deep, like question mark, it's like an arch here and a C shape here. Bring it in for the curve, then you bring it back out around. It's the same thing over and over. The trick to this design is traveling, so traveling or back stitching on a line that you've already stitched. So we're gonna backtrack on this line we've already stitched. You can see it get a little darker. Come up and out and curl around for our next circle. And the trick is really just to make these circles look as much like they're laying on top of one another as we possibly can. So you just backtrack to different sections of your swirls. And then when in doubt, you can just travel back and forth, or you can add an extra curve in there, and then always use your ditches to travel out if you need to. Okay, so that is the concentric circle design. Now when you're looking at the swirls over here on the right, it says utilize pairings of an S curve and a C curve. So you notice that you get this wide, gentle S, and you bring it around with a tighter S curve and then into a C. So let's start as a dot and follow the rainbow. Red, bring it back in and around, orange. So if you notice, if you come to the inside, you end up this direction of the swirl. I bring it back up for the yellow, and now this time I'm going to go on the outside. Green. So I ended up on this end of the swirl. Now the reason why I want to go over here is because I have all this empty space I want to fill. So then you'll bring up your next one. It's going to kind of echo for the blue. It's going to echo that green, come out into its tight spiral C curve, and then back down and around for purple. Then you're going to come up and in, and then come back out. Then you can finish this space. C, back, arch, in, back out. And you just follow that pattern. If you need to, you come into an area and you can echo it a couple times just to get out of there. Come back and around, tuck in here, and then the next one, you're gonna go into another C. Now the trick to this one is just changing direction. Now if you notice my two lines touch here, that's very normal. That happens, especially when you're just starting out to learn the design. And you just have to choose if you want to travel on the inside, right? And that's going to get you on one side of the swirl. Or if you want to travel along the outside, and that'll get you in a completely different part of the swirl. Just so that you can get in there and fill all those different areas. Okay? Next we have our pebbles. Pebbles are fantastic. Now these we're doing a chain of pebbles, so it's a little easier than trying to fill the entire area. So if you notice the changing color on the overlap, start at the red dot and go around. Now I wasn't trying to be super careful with my overlap. I really wanted you to see that the colors are changing. You start at the red dot and you go around. Then you do a whole orange circle. Then you backtrack over where you just stitched for yellow. Make a whole yellow circle. Backtrack over the top. Make a green circle. Backtrack over the top again. Do the blue circle. Backtrack over the top again. And do purple. That's how you get a pebble chain. So we're going to come up and we're going to make like a figure 8 to make that other orange. And we just keep going back around, figure 8, yellow, back around, figure 8, green, back around, figure 8, purple, or blue, and then you keep going. So that's how you get the pebbles touching. And of course you want to follow them, like in here, to get them around your arch design. Then you've got your back and forth design. If you notice, these are some tight, narrow S-curves happening repetitively. So if we follow our red, it's an S-curve, and then an S-curve, and then an S-curve, and then an S-curve. So we're just making a tight S over and over and over again. And then as you get better in practice, those can get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, okay? So it's a repetitive S-curve pattern for the back and forth design. Now for the piano keys, we're going to utilize something called touch and go. This one is going to be great. You'll see all of this again explained when I'm stitching at the machine, but I wanted to give you some good hands-on practice so you can practice doing this before we get to the machine. Touch and go is where you utilize your outside edge, so that 20-inch line we drew all the way across our worksheet. We're going to have arches in there, right? So let's pretend this is an arch. We're going to take our ruler and our machine and we're going to come down and back up along the edge, 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 down and back up. Now what this does is it makes it so that we don't have to backtrack along our arch. Otherwise, if you're doing a straight line down, right, each time you come to the arch, you're going to have to backtrack on the arch and come back up. Backtrack down here. Come back up, backtrack the arch, come up. And what that's going to do is it's going to create pockets where your arch has double thread on it, and then that'll look a little bit messy. This way you keep the double line here and you can keep the focus where it needs to be, keeping these designs nice and clear. Now for the arrows and the arches, they're very similar in construction, okay? I'm going to show you a neat trick on the machine, how to utilize your ruler so you don't actually have to measure. You're going to start at the red dot, and for an arrow, if you come up and down, right, red, orange, yellow, green, if you notice, one full arrow, okay, we've completed the design with 2 lines, that gets you right back at the point where you started. But if you give yourself a second line, or a third line to make your second arrow, that's going to have you finish out over here, which is fantastic because then you're constantly progressing in a direction that you can continue to make the arrow. So that's a great tip for if you're trying to get arrows somewhere in a border or something like that in a sashing. You can continually progress your arrow if you have an odd number of lines. So that odd number of lines will take you from left to right, okay? If you keep coming back to the same point, then you're going to have to do what we did with our arches. So we have 4 lines, it's an even number, okay? And an even number is going to get you right back where you started. Watch how this happens. We start here, red, orange, yellow, green. That's 2 lines. Blue, purple, black, brown. That's 4 lines, so we stopped here. How on earth do we continue the progression to go in a direction? Because even if we did the next arch right next to it, 4 lines brings you right back here to this point, which is where we don't want to be. We want to keep progressing around the outer edge of our design. So we're going to add a filler. So for my filler, I'm going to come in a little bit, ride along my arch. I'm going to do my chain of pebbles. Now you need to do what feels comfortable for you. You don't have to put this one in here at the top if you don't want to. I often tend to squeeze it in. I like to have one inside my arch. Okay. and then come out. And now you've ended on the opposite side. So instead of doing that arch design, friction pens do have a fun purpose, right? We can use them for doodling. Use them for doodling, not for marking your quilt tops. So the other thing that you can do is, instead of doing the pebbles, we did our 4 lines, we ended up back here, you can do a nice back and forth. And that will give you the same pretty look as those pebbles without actually having to do pebbles. So just know that you can put whatever you want in this arch to make it your own. If you don't want to fill anything in these tiny little baby 3x4 arches, you don't feel confident with your free motion skills, and you don't want to have to mess with these itty bitty 1/8 of an inch spaces, okay? Instead of doing 4 lines, you do what? You do 3 lines, 1, 2, 3, because that's going to get you right, left, right, and then you progress. And you don't have to have the extra line in there. From an aesthetics standpoint, it's not going to make any bit of difference. It's still going to look wonderful when it's on your quilt top. The only difference is that you don't have an arch sucking up this space. So when you come underneath to get those swirls to fill in, they're just going to come a little bit higher. So you're going to get more swirls in there, but you're only going to have 2 arches to show for it. Okay? So that is a basis for how we do all of our designs for the July Free Motion Quilt Along. I will stitch these on the machine. You will see me go over these multiple times. You'll watch me stitch for a good while, especially on the swirls and the concentric circles. The rest of these are pretty easy to get down once you get going. There is a YouTube video where I'm in manual mode stitching these concentric circles. So if you wanted to watch those in the meantime, just to get a feel for how the design moves around, you're welcome to do that. That's on my YouTube channel, Bold Notion Quilting. And I think that's pretty much it for the designs. I just wanted to give you something to practice with. I know this worksheet isn't a ton of space for you to practice the designs. Get out a notebook. And what I would recommend is, because you're doing especially these designs in particular spaces, for instance, let's get that thread off of there. Because you're doing these designs in odd shapes, when you're practicing on your own worksheet at home, I would practice drawing that odd shape and trying to get those swirls to fit in those shapes, because it'll practice you getting in and out of weird situations. The other cool thing that you can use is a clear plexiglass and an expo marker. This is my fun party trick, right? So if this is our arch, the bottom of our arch here, this is the edge of our arrow, and I really wanted to practice getting this design in this area, I could just come in and practice my swirls and see how I liked it. Now if I decided I'm never going to get these swirls in here, I can't get this down, well, then you can come in and you can practice doing another design and see how you like that. Get a nice little stipple in there and see how you like the way that it looks. I know that's a little messy looking, but you get the idea. The other thing too is, when you're waiting to practice for the Free Motion Quilt Along, if you wanted to, you certainly could take that grid that you have and practice doing your ruler work to get that down. 4, and then do those pebbles and see how you like them in that area. Okay, so those are great ways to practice. You can also pull up the PDF version of this worksheet if you save it to your tablet, as we do in all of my classes. Those of you who have Microsoft OneNote or Adobe Sketch, download that app on your tablet or laptop. If you don't have it, you can pull this worksheet right up into that program, and then you can practice designing your heart out and erase to your heart's content. So that way you can practice going over my rainbow designs and then branching into practicing it on your own. All right, so now that we have mapped out our top and we have practiced our designs, we're going to want to take it to the machine. So you can do all of your ruler work before you do any of the free motion, except for the pebbles. You're going to do that at the same time. You can do a lot of your ruler work before you even have to do any of the free motion design. So feel free to start stitching, and each day in between that it takes you to get the project done, just go in and practice your free motion quilting. 10 to 15 minutes a day practicing on the doodles will make a very big difference and a very real impact on how well you quilt them on your projects for this free motion quilt along. So I'm excited to get stitching. Let's head to the machine.